Call this March 9th, 2020 council meeting to order. If you'll please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. You may have noticed we only have 4 members tonight. Don't be worried. They'll be back.
Hopefully.
Will the clerk please call the roll?
Coyne,
Here.
Hazeltine, Heffinger,
Here.
Lamb, Rose,
Here.
Shields,
Here.
Simpson.
Reading of the minutes.
Mr. President,
Mr. Shields.
I move that the minutes from the regular meeting of February 24th, 2020 as prepared and submitted by the clerk be approved.
Second.
Any discussion? Will the clerk please call the roll on the approval of the minutes?
Heffinger,
Yes.
Rose,
Yes.
Shields,
Yes.
Coyne.
Yes. Reports of standing committees. The Finance Committee met prior to council this evening and will meet again in 2 weeks. Public Properties, Mr. Shields.
Thank you, Mr. President. No report this evening and no meeting scheduled.
Thank you. Streets and Sidewalks, Mr. Heffinger.
Thank you, Mr. President. No report at this time and no meeting scheduled.
Thank you. And Emerging Technologies, Mr. Rose.
Thank you, Mr. President. No meeting scheduled. Nothing to report at this time.
All right, thank you. Request for council action. We have several for finance and one for health safety. We have 2047 budget amendments for finance. 2048, accept donation Medina Evening Rotary Club for 9/11 Memorial. 2049, approve water connection for 5528 Lafayette Road. 2050, increase expenditure for Signal Service Co. for the Street Department. 2051, letter of arrangement for 2019 financial audit. 2052, game time fitness equipment for Ray Mallard Park. 2053, amend salaries and benefits 3107, 3105, and 3104H for tree care technician. 2054, resolution directing property owners to complete Lindenwood Dam improvements. 2055, bids on job number 1018, Lindenwood Lake Dam improvements. And 2056, MOU with Medina County Soil and Water Conservation District. And for Health, Safety, and Sanitation Committee, we have 2057, underground waste containers. Reports of municipal officers. Mayor Hamwell.
Thank you, Mr. President. We've been notified that the parking deck construction south of Medina City Hall is to start progress again on next Monday, March 16th. The Medina Bicentennial books are currently on sale. They're $10 for a soft cover and $20 for a hard cover, and they're available at Miss Molly's and Medina County Convention and Visitors Bureau. Both of those locations have hard and soft covers, and then soft covers only at Medina City Hall. Barbara DeZer has those in Economic Development, and also the Firehouse Museum when it is open. The coronavirus, COVID-19 information is posted at the Medina County Health Department website. It includes symptoms, preventions, etc., and we're referring the public to go directly there, as all the updates will be placed there as well. And that website is www.medinahealth.org. And there's a little rolling banner on the top that says COVID-19. And if you just click on that, it has the latest updates, the latest news, as well as the symptoms and preventions. Last Thursday, March 5th, Councilman Jim Shields, Lieutenant Scott Markham, and I attended the American Red Cross Acts of Courage Awards in Fair Lawn. And 2 of our police officers, Officer Matt Martinson and Chris Deeks, were both awarded for saving 2 women from a second-floor fire in an apartment on Birch Hill in June of 2019. The 2 officers were unable to convince the women to jump from the second floor, and were able to grab a ladder from a nearby parking lot, a construction ladder that was on top of a truck, and use that ladder then to get both women down safely. And they were commended for their actions there last Thursday. On Thursday, March 12th, from 4 p.m. to 8:30 p.m. Main Street Medina will present the Ladies' Night Out on the square at the local businesses. And just kind of a notice of upcoming events. The National Day of Prayer events will be the first Thursday in May, which this year is May 7th. And that's a 7 a.m. Mayor's Prayer Breakfast at Williams on the Lake. This is the only event that tickets are sold for. They're $15 a piece, or a table of 8 for $100. And they'll be available shortly or soon at one of the local churches and my office. The noon prayer service at St. Francis Church involving the school students, and the 7 p.m. prayer service this year will be at the Medina United Methodist Church on Foot Road. And the theme this year is Pray God's Glory Across the Earth. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Durham, Director of Finance.
Thank you, Mr. President. I have a reminder that the city of Medina has an income tax. All residents are required to file an income tax return by April 15th. We have 2 opportunities coming up to where representatives from RITA, who collects the income tax for us, will be here in the city to help you with those forms. The first one is this Saturday, March 14th. The second one is Saturday, April 4th, and both of those are at the Rec Center, and they will be from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. So that's Saturday, March 14th, this Saturday, and again Saturday, April 4th.
Thank you, Mr. Huber, Law Director.
Thank you, Mr. President. I have no report.
Thank you, Lieutenant Burt Beckler, Police Department.
Thank you, Mr. President. I have no report.
Thank you, Mrs. Marshall, Economic Development Director.
Thank you, Mr. President. Just a couple items to note for council and the public this evening. On Friday, March 13th, we will again host a couple of ribbon cuttings along with the City of Medina, Medina Chamber of Commerce, and Main Street Medina. And the first one is at 10 a.m. for the Medina, Ohio 2018 Hometown America's Bicentennial Book Unveiling. This is also in conjunction with the Bicentennial Committee. The book will be unveiled at the Fire Engine House Museum located at 50 Public Square. And I am told by Mr. Smalley that the books will also be for sale there that day. And they don't have a credit card machine, but they can take cash or a check. So that's at 10 o'clock in the morning. And then 11 o'clock, we will officially welcome Sweet Mango, which is a new Thai restaurant at 871 North Court Street. And those are the 2 ribbon cuttings for the day. So we hope you can join us. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mendel, Planning and Community Development Director.
Thank you, Mr. President. I have no report this evening.
Thank you, Chief Painter, Fire Chief.
Thank you, Mr. President. I have no report.
Thank you, Mr. Wright, Recreation Center Director.
Thank you, Mr. President. Just 2 quick updates. The Medina Rec wants to thank the community for another great year for the Rec Basketball League. This year we had 91 teams registered with just over 900 participants. Our last games are set for this weekend, so the field house will be back to normal for spring break the 23rd through the 27th. The next Rec Advisory Board meeting is Thursday, March 19th at 7:30 a.m. at the Rec Center. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Worley, Parks and Recreation Director.
Thank you, Mr. President. Just one item to report. This coming Wednesday, March 11th, the USDA wildlife biologists will be in town conducting a deer survey throughout city limits using thermal imagers. The survey will begin at 7 p.m. They'll have one vehicle driving through town very methodically in a grid pattern. The vehicle will have federal plates on it, and then they will be tracking down deer and marking their locations on a map to verify data that the Parks Department has collected as part of our deer management process. Originally, we were intending on doing a helicopter survey, but the moderate winter that we've had didn't provide adequate snowpack to do that during the scheduled time. So this is the second best option, just to verify our data that the Parks Department is collecting, making sure that we're collecting deer numbers in proper locations to ensure that the information is accurate. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Gladys, Building Official.
Thank you, Mr. President. I have no report.
Thank you, Mr. Patton, City Engineer.
Thank you, Mr. President. An update on our South Broadway project. The gas company is on site, has been on site. What they're doing is lowering the gas laterals across the street in anticipation of our project. We do expect to send letters to each resident with information about the project within the next week or so. At that time, we'll announce a date and a time for a public meeting where residents are allowed to come in and we can share information about the project with them. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. McCauley, Service Director.
Thank you, Mr. President. This afternoon, or actually this morning, Ohio Edison contacted the city with respect to a project they have on East Smith Road between Court Street and Broadway. They have to exchange 2 poles, remove 2, and install 2. That will require partial road closure. Actually, the road will be closed, but we will work with them with regard to the school hours. It'll be closed on Wednesday, March 11th after 9 a.m. and opening back up at 2:30 p.m. that same day, and then on Thursday, March 12th, the same. They're hopeful they can get that work done in that time slot. So we appreciate the public's patience. Thank you.
Thank you. Unfinished business, we have none. Introduction of visitors. Members of the public will be permitted the opportunity to speak on any issue or concern which pertains to the city during the portion of the council agenda devoted to introduction of visitors. All comments shall be directed to the chair, and the reasonable time limit of approximately 5 minutes will be imposed. If there's a group, please appoint a spokesperson. Speakers should approach the front, right microphone, phone, and state their name and address so it can be entered into the minutes. Members of the public will be permitted the opportunity to speak on other portions of the meeting as determined by the chair or by a vote of a majority of council members present. Mrs. Walker.
President Coyne, thank you for the opportunity. Pat Walker, 523 East Friendship Street in Medina. The courthouse project is going along fast. Now, the council may not think so. Tonight, the council is voting on whether or not the city should pay more money to study the issue and to see what can be done with the joint courthouse project. However, interestingly, with the county side, the architects have told a number of departments this week that this week they will see the final plans for the courthouse. So there does not seem to be joint work on this. It appears that the city's doing one thing and the county's doing another. The taxpayers, meanwhile, have not had a say. Therefore, the Save Your Courthouse Committee has decided to do another initiative, an initiative petition, to put the courthouse issue on the ballot in November. We will be collecting signatures on Election Day. We'll be at the Rec Center, the Fairgrounds, and the Human Services Building, and we'll be collecting signatures between now and Election Day and after Election Day. And if anyone wants to sign the petition, they can also go to my office, 231 South Broadway, 8:30 in the morning till 5:30 at night, and sign the petition. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anybody else that wishes to address council at this time? Okay. Introduction of consideration of ordinances and resolutions. We have ordinance 4420, an ordinance authorizing the expenditure of $10,000 to the Medina County Society for Prevention of Cruelty to Animals, SPCA, for animal-related services for the year 2020.
Move to approve.
Second.
Discussion? Mayor Hanwell?
Thank you, Mr. President. I know Councilman Rose has been working with the SPCA on detailing for the city each year the volume of animals and locations so that we may verify that they are within the city of Medina, which has been very helpful. I would respectfully ask council's passing of this in as much as if the city had to have an animal control officer, even a part-time animal control officer, and pay them wages, it would far exceed the $10,000 that's been requested. And this is a good collaborative effort between the city of Medina and the Medina County SPCA. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Rose, do you have anything to add?
No, I think the mayor summed it up well. But I do have one thing comes to mind, the improvements that have gone on with the management structure and the way the personnel are handling things at the SPCA has come a long way. In the past 5 or 6 years, they put in the right people in the right places, and I think we're getting a better value for our dollar now.
Yeah, thank you for all your efforts in monitoring that for council. That's we appreciate your time that you put in. Is there any further discussion on the ordinance? Will the clerk please call the roll on the adoption of the ordinance?
Rose?
Yes.
Shields?
Yes.
Coyne?
Yes.
Heffinger?
Yes.
Ordinance 4420 passes 4-0.
Ordinance 4520, ordinance to amend the codified ordinance of the City of Medina, Ohio, Section 94306L, pertaining to markers, monuments, foundations, and niche coverings at the Spring Grove Cemetery.
Move to approve.
Second.
Discussion, Mr. Worley.
Thank you, Mr. President. This request is to add language into 94306I to include specific information about the height of the tablet that is permitted at Spring Grove and our newer sections. There were some concerns that were brought to our cemetery sexton in regards to monuments being installed that were over 5 feet in height, because the current ordinance regulates the size of the base, the width of it, and as you go taller with a monument, it tends to become unstable and poses a potential risk with settling and falling over. So we brought this concern to the Cemetery Commission this past February at our regular scheduled meeting, and they recommended changing this, and therefore here we are to change all of the marker requirements in the newer sections at the cemetery, which are markers placed over single lots or double lots, that the tablet on that marker cannot exceed 48 inches tall. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further discussion or comment? Will the clerk please call the roll on the adoption of the ordinance?
Shields,
Yes.
Coin,
Yes.
Heffinger,
Yes.
Rose.
Yes.
Ordinance 4520 passes 4-0.
Ordinance 4620, an ordinance authorizing the purchase of one 2020 Ford F-250 truck equipped with a Reading Classic 2 service body from Montrose Ford for the Parks Department.
Move to approve.
Second.
Discussion, Mr. Worley.
Thank you, Mr. President. This request, as you mentioned, is to purchase a new Ford F-250 truck through the Community University and Education Purchasing Association contract. This unit will be replacing a 2005 GMC that the department has utilized for quite a long time. It is being equipped with a service body that is being funded with our carry forward monies, and this was approved as part of our 2020 budget cycle.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Will the clerk please call the roll on the adoption of the ordinance?
Coin,
Yes.
Heffinger,
Yes.
Rose,
Yes.
and Shields.
Yes.
Ordinance 4620 passes 4-0.
Resolution 4720, resolution authorizing the mayor to submit a grant application with the Ohio Environmental Protection Agency, OEPA, for the purpose of purchasing a new front-load packer truck to be used in the collection of recyclable materials.
Move to approve.
Second.
Discussion, Mr. Pacoli.
Thank you, Mr. President. As the ordinance states, it allows the Service Department to submit a grant application for recycling. Currently, the City Sanitation Department has a cardboard route that we pick up, as well as a yard waste program that everyone is well familiar with that's been increasing over the years. The total cost of a new front-load packer is approximately $286,000. If we're successful, this grant will cover $100,000, and the City Sanitation Department will pick up the remainder.
Thank you. Any further discussion on the resolution? Will the clerk please call the roll on the adoption of the resolution?
Heffinger,
Yes.
Rose,
Yes.
Shields,
Yes.
Coin.
Yes.
Resolution 4720 passes 4-0.
Ordinance 4820, an ordinance authorizing the mayor to enter into a contract with Gotchel Grant Resources to work on a city's behalf to apply for Assistance to Firefighters Grant, AFG, for the replacement of air tanks for the fire department.
Move to approve.
Second.
Discussion, Chief Painter.
Thank you, Mr. President. As was stated, this request is to use Gatchel Grant Resources to apply for an Assistance to Firefighter Grant from FEMA on behalf of the department. The grant is to replace our current breathing air tanks at a cost of approximately $443,467, of which $49,000 would be the department's responsibility, and I have carry forward funds to cover this expenditure.
Thank you. Any further discussion on the ordinance? Will the clerk please call the roll on the adoption of the ordinance?
Rose,
Yes.
Shields,
Yes.
Coin,
Yes.
Heffinger.
Yes.
Ordinance 4820 passes 4-0.
Ordinance 4920, ordinance amending ordinance number 9819 passed June 24th, 2019, relative to the agreement with the Board of Commissioners of Medina County, Ohio, to share cost of professional design, planning, and construction management services for the joint construction and management of a county city courthouse.
Move to approve.
Second?
Discussion? Mayor Hamwell?
Thank you, Mr. President. So this ordinance does a number of things. One, the original ordinance 9819, which was passed in June of 2019, incorrectly stated that the funds should be paid to Brandstetter and Carroll. One in another section, it directed that the funds be paid to the county commissioners. So this is correcting that, as well as ordinance 9819 did not include the fees for the construction manager at risk, although it referenced them in the original ordinance. So the other thing it does is adds an additional $38,000, $19,000 from the court special project fund and $19,000 from the city capital account to make up the $38,000 for the expected construction manager at risk fees for the city share. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. And I think on Wednesday morning, the mayor and I and the judge and Nancy Abbott have a meeting with the architects to look at the design and discuss the layout of the facility. And then after that is done, I would assume that I'm going to call a meeting that the council get involved and look at what was presented by the architect after those discussions have occurred, so we can have our input as far as what we would like to see and what the building design is currently at and where we would be as far as the costs associated with that, so we can have a little bit of input on that. So I think we're going to have our involvement to decide exactly what the building or our portion of the building would look like and the cost, and if we have any comments or questions regarding that. So that'll probably be next on the agenda once the architects provide us with a rendering of what is decided at the meeting on Wednesday. Is there any further discussion or comment? Will the clerk please call the roll on the adoption of the ordinance?
Shields.
Yes.
Coin.
Yes.
Heffinger.
Yes.
Rose.
Yes.
Ordinance 4920 passes 4-0.
Ordinance 5020, ordinance amending ordinance number 18719, passed November 25th, 2019. Amendments to the 2020 budget.
Move to approve.
Second?
Discussion, Mr. Durham.
Thank you, Mr. President. 3 of these, as we discussed at Finance, are donations. When the city receives a donation, council has to appropriate the funds so they can be spent, and then the other one is a transfer within the department.
Thank you. Any further discussion or comment? Will the clerk please call the roll on the adoption of the ordinance?
Coin.
Yes.
Heffinger.
Yes.
Rose.
Yes.
Shields.
Yes.
Ordinance 5020 passes 4-0.
Council comments.
Mr. President?
Mr. Rose?
At the risk of beating a living horse, the mayor mentioned COVID-19. Over the weekend, I had an opportunity to have a message conversation with my cousin who lives in Milan, and she said that prior to the big outbreak of COVID, a lot of people in the Milan area were having an increased incidence of colds, bronchitis, flu, and things like that. And she's just wondering if maybe they just were never tested, and they had it too. Most of the people were just having anywhere from a mild to severe cold. You know, if I'm not trying to minimize it, don't get me wrong, but that's another story from another place that's already been heavily impacted by it. So just keep that in mind. Don't panic. Go out and live your lives as normal as possible, but use the precautions. Wash your hands. You know, don't shake hands this time of year. That's something that goes on all and on, because there's over 60,000 people, who die from the flu anyway in the United States. Again, not minimizing it, but let's put it in perspective. Okay? Keep the economy going. Keep the city going. Keep your friends going. And we'll get out of this. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other council comments? Hearing none, the meeting's adjourned.